Many years in fundamentalist organizations that were like factories that turned regular people into these extremely rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel individuals. And like a curious cat whose head is stuck in a bag of Doritos, it took me a lot of effort to back out. In my great enthusiasm to think only what I was supposed to think and to emote only what I was supposed to emote, I lost all contact, or a great deal of contact, with my authentic present moment experience. And ironically enough, that caused me to be vulnerable to a very special type of scammer who preys upon people who are uncomfortable. Perhaps you've met them. They pretend to be very centered and very earthy, and they'll confront you at an event and say, you don't seem very authentic. I may be able to help you with that for the right fee. Now, of course, they're a lot more subtle than that. But there's a special type of fiend that preys upon the neurotic and unhappy. But there's a kernel of truth there. Forgive me as a Buddhist for quoting the Christian New Testament, but in the Gospel of John, Jesus teaches that I'm the way, the truth, and the life. If that's true, even metaphorically, then if one divorces themselves from the truth, if one becomes, now I'm not talking about being sincerely inaccurate, but if one actively strives to ignore the truth, one is divorcing themselves from their understanding of God. And you could go to the first epistle of John and read that God is love. And virtually every spiritual system teaches the importance of love. We are divorcing ourselves from love when we are out of touch with what's really going on in our heart and in our mind in the present moment. So often, with the best of enthusiasms, it is as if we are buried alive, not under dirt, not under debris, but under shoulds. I should think this. I should feel that. I should be doing this. And we're so busy shoulding ourselves that we lose sight of who we are. And sadly, the poster boy for that is Anakin Skywalker. Now, Anakin Skywalker had pretty much the deck stacked against him. Number one, he joined the Jedi Order late in life, relatively speaking. Number two, he suffered from PTSD. Number three, he suffered from what's it called? A borderline personality disorder. And number three, he had a very inexperienced mentor. And one of his coping tools, with the utmost of sincerity, was pretty much to repress what he was feeling. Instead of processing what he was feeling, he would repress what he was feeling. And let's face it, guys, Anakin fell hard to the dark side. One of the reasons for that isn't just because he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it, but because he was so out of touch with what was going on inside him. It's kind of like ninjas. You heard me, ninjas. What's the key to defeating a ninja? Recognizing the presence of a ninja. Similarly, we cannot overcome drives and impulses and emotions and thoughts that we are ignoring. So the solution is twofold. The first part, How do we recognize what's going on in our circumstances, in our body, in our relationships, in our mind? How do we recognize what's going on visually, auditorily, sensually, gustorally, olfactorily? How do we recognize what's going on emotionally, intentionally, cognitively, mnemonically, phantasmagorically? How do we know what's going on? Fortunately, humans possess a 3-pound squishy supercomputer between our ears, and the oldest part of it, our spinal cord, contains our autonomic nervous system. In our thoracic region, part corresponding to our chest, we have our sympathetic nervous system, which is already wired to perceive those things, not actively, but passively, vulnerably, viscerally, and randomly. And we are wired to access that sympathetic nervous system during each inhalation. And this mechanism can be described as mindfulness. How important is it? The Buddha described it as the first of 7 enlightenment factors. No mindfulness, no peace. Now, because mindfulness correlates to our inhalation during each inhalation, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. It is the universal label for what we are experiencing in the present moment. Now, sometimes the present moment is scary. Sometimes it's turbulent. In the present moment, we could experience the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful. We could experience the interesting, the boring, the glorious, and the grotesque, the coarse or the subtle, the direct or the indirect. How do we juggle this? How do we process this? How do we experience it with great vulnerability without it controlling us like as if we were a great big marionette? The key to safety with mindfulness. It can be seen in the example of Mace Windu. Yes, we've all heard the jokes about Mace Windu. He never met a rule he wouldn't practice. But Mace Windu was aware that he had aggressive tendencies. He was aware that he had a close affinity to the dark side. And instead of repressing it or indulging it, he found a way to harness that. And so in a very real sense, Mace Windu is the poster child for safety, for tempering mindfulness with safety. I'd like to show you how to do that right now. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access the parasympathetic nervous system. And as the suffix infers, it's bifurcated. There's a part in our lumbar region of our spinal cord that correlates with physical relaxation. And there's a part in our cervical spinal cord that correlates with mental release. This happens automatically. We do not have to force it, but we can cooperate with it. And that's the key to meditation. As we sit in an impeccable posture, we're not controlling what comes up. We're not controlling the release process, but we are choosing to align our intention, our will, our volition, if you like synonyms, with our fundamental programming of our parasympathetic nervous system. We are already wired to physically relax during each exhalation, but usually we are either oblivious to our body's attempts to momentarily relax, or we actively fight it thinking, no, I cannot relax, for I am a coffee achiever. No, you're not. You're too damn wired to get anything done. So rather than fight it or ignore it, when we recognize the fact that your body is wired to relax even a little bit during each exhalation, we can align our intention, we can cease to fight, we can actually cooperate with these tendencies. Therefore, during each exhalation, it's perfectly appropriate to silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. And so now you have it. Let's tie this up in a big red bow. In order to be healthy and happy, we have to be in touch with what's going on in the moment, regardless of how ugly or grotesque or embarrassing or boring it is. And oh yeah, by the way, there's a lie that only boring people get bored. Malarkey. You know who gets bored? Anybody whose dopamine levels get too low. And there are actually physical conditions that prevent us from both manufacturing enough dopamine or for holding on to dopamine. And that is not a character flaw. So if you are prone to boredom, that's not your fault. It is indicative of an unmet physical need. So please, oh please, if that is a common thing to you, bring it up to your psychiatrist, or if you don't have one, find one. And so real quickly, if you don't have a psychiatrist and you're plagued by the symptoms of low dopamine, in the description area below the video, if you scroll down under the vegan section, there's a link for PCRM, Find a Physician. It's a free service. You'll find a physician who specializes in psychiatry, who has done extensive has devoted their continuing education hours to exploring peer-reviewed studies correlating physical and psychiatric conditions with nutrition, which can go a long way. Having said all that, let's move forward together. I think it could be great fun if together as a team we chanted the Friday morning excerpt of the most fundamental of all the Dzogchen meditation manuals. The manual is titled The Vast Expanse of Vajrasattva. Its author is Gaurav Dorje. But before we dig in, I guess I would be considerate to remind you that if at any point during this morning's practice you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. If you're watching on a laptop or a desktop, that'll be on the right. And if you're watching on your smartphone, that'll be down below. And now together, let's chant. All possible circumstances and all beings in them arise not duly from the pristine continuum. In the purity of divine presence there are no such distinctions as male or female. In the domain of reality there is no talk of getting somewhere by means of effort. And yet some say that by using the powers of sound, one can generate the bliss of a magical illusion. The true condition cannot be grasped conceptually, but appears in varied ways according to how one views it. To strive for bliss, desiring it to manifest, only generates obscuration and confusion. Meditating on the appearance of a deity is like meditating on the reflections of the moon and water. Although such meditators strive to be undefiled and unattached, their practices are like child's play. I look forward to meditating with you after about 45 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso. I've spent the majority of my life studying and practicing every sect of Buddhism, enduring every frustration, so you won't have to. Welcome to the Buddha Joy Meditation School, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Let us take but a moment to recite or chant the recitations of empathetic bodhicitta as well as enthusiastic refuge. We'll begin with the sedating triplet chant. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. And now the concise, energizing bookend chant. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. We've already explored the mechanics of meditation during this morning's lesson, so we can go straight to the actual practice. Of course, this is Luke Skywalker Friday. So let's practice together right now. Quick reminder, I check for questions approximately once every 7 or 9 minutes. I'll be right back. Let's seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old chanting. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness with spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. I would very much like to lead today's mid-morning group meditation in about 3 hours or so. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.